To what is this? This is B. Michael here with Shifting Paradigms Business, and I'm bandaged up and live. All right, so it was hilarious. So today, well, first and foremost, let me go ahead and just give my shouts out to the Black Family Awareness Technology, the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. Let me get that right. No doubt, here at the W.E.B. Du Bois Learning Center on KUAW Radio, knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. Got Baba G here holding it down on the soundboards and keeping it up always. Just want to give a shout out to everything that takes place here. And so, you looking at me a little bandaged up. And so, I had like these sebaceous cysts that grew in my head, so had those removed today. It isn't my first round with this, but it's something that's just in my family, and we tend to have these growths that take place in our head, and so I had those removed today. But it don't stop the show. The show continually must go, and I'm here. We're gonna continue to put Shifting Paradigms down at my appointed hour on the appointed day and make this happen. And so always wanna, make sure that the people are getting they just due from me in my service to the community, So powerful, powerful, powerful. Gonna continue to power. So, so much going on, of course, perhaps one of the most controversial and talked about matters that's taking place in our community in general is with Kanye West right now, and all the different sound bites that are coming out from him. And, one of the most important things that he is saying, however, is about our identity as the children of Israel. He says that we have the blood, he says, of Christ. We are Jews, and there's factual statements that he's making in that regard that unfortunately are being overshadowed by some other statements that he's making. And that's just the nature of the beast. Kanye, as a very outspoken person, really needs to learn how to really just pick and choose his battles. But he's like, I'm not going to keep nothing secret. You know what I'm saying? You tell me something, I'm going to tell to the whole people, because the truth is what's going to set us free. So he's doing what he understands to be the truth, and I don't agree with everything that he's saying, but I do agree with some of the stuff that he's trumpeting, and so that's a very interesting topic that's going on. Of course, Kansas City just had a serial killer that the police said wasn't a threat or wasn't, corroborated by anything. And then here we go. You have this serial killer that is actually holding people in torture basements. A woman escaped recently and was saying that, many of her friends didn't make it. So this is something that our community needs to be aware of what's going on, because these are some very perilous times that we're in. And prophetically, we were told that these times would be dark and perilous. We were told that. And so we have to be aware of the day and the time that we are in. And so, in terms of dealing just with time period, we are also in the closing days of the Feast of Tabernacles. Some actually have concluded the Feast of Tabernacles in the scripture, Leviticus 23. So last week we talked about atonement paradigmatics. And now we're going to be talking about tabernacle paradigmatics and understanding that we are the temple of the Most High. We are the true temple of the Most High. And so that is pretty much going to be the thrust of our topic today, and really looking into some of the principles and dynamics. And I will even say some of the mysteries that exist as relates to understanding that we are the living stones. We are the temple made without hands, right? That is supposed to be the house and the dwelling place of the spirit of the true and living creator of heaven, earth, sea, and all that is in them. And so when we take a look at this, we're going to really uncover some interesting matters as relates to even some of the vessels of the temple and their symbolic representation. The many people who talk about the shadows that exist from what is called the Old Testament, that I know as the Tanakh, right? The Tanakh is the Torah, the writings, and the prophets, or the Torah, prophets, and writings that contain many of the foundational teachings, most, if not all, the foundational teachings of everything the scriptures discuss. And so when we go back to there, we can see many of the principles that are being carried out and manifested in the New Testament that we have to really wrestle with. And I know those are the messianic scriptures as well. So we have to really rightfully divide this and understand everything at its foundation. And we're going to look into this and understand the mystery of the temple and what it really points to. And it points to us and our bodies being these living structures that compose the house of Elohim, the true, what you would call Beit El, the house of Elohim. And so very powerful principles we're going to be discussing here today. And so to begin, we're going to look at 1 Corinthians. And we're going to look at chapter 6. And moving from there, what we're going to look at is verse 19 and 20. It says, "Do you not know that your body is the dwelling place of the set-apart Spirit who is in you, which you have from Elohim, and you are not your own? For you were bought with a price, therefore esteem Elohim in your body and in your spirit, which are of Elohim." And this is where the matter of holiness comes into the picture of everything. And this is so powerful because holiness is really about being what you call consecrated. It's about being set apart. It's about not allowing yourself to be defiled by anything that is of this world, to be blameless, to be unblemished, to be spotless. And believe it or not, that is what the word for perfection in Hebrew means. The word in Hebrew, tamim, just means to be spotless, to be blameless, to be unblemished, to be without spot, without wrinkle, to keep your garments white at all times, the scripture says. And it's a challenge. It's a daunting challenge in this world that we live in that is a hypersexualized society. It's a very daunting society where we live in, where even the clothes we wear can defile us. And this is something that my woman and I have been discussing in dealing with clothes and how they lower our vibration. They can lower our frequency. Because when you're dealing with these synthetic fabrics such as polyester and nylon and spandex, right? And viscose and rayon, they have no vibratory rate and nothing can be conducted through these particular materials. And our bodies have a natural vibratory rate of about 100 hertz per minute. And maybe even per second, 100 hertz per second. And so with that, if we put things that don't allow for the vibratory rates of our bodies to flow, we will find that our energy, our spirit, right, our life force energy will be grounded. It will be deadened. And that doesn't allow for the spirit to truly conduct through us. And this is where a lot of dis-ease comes from blockages, right, from energy distortions. And this is why in scripture we were commanded to not even wear mixed blends, right? You can't wear wool and linen. You can't wear cotton and wool. You can't mix these things because what it does, it actually distorts the resonance that exists within these blends. So the clothes we wear, not to mention the food that we eat, which defiles our body and renders us unclean and keeps us from being able to truly ascend in spiritual consciousness. And so these things here are very essential. And this is why it says honor Elohim with your body or in your body and in your spirit. So this includes anger. This includes lust. This includes, right, gluttony. This includes all the different energetic, works of the flesh that we have to, and spirit that we have to overcome and master. This is why self-mastery is so important. This is what allows us to really become that dwelling place of the Spirit of the Most High. And the reason why we don't believe in the Most High is because we're not putting ourselves in a position to experience the Most High. And so these are things that we have to truly work on, right? To get to a place where we can actually function in a very, very effective way and bring this light back into creation. And one of the interesting dynamics that you read of is not expressly stated, but it's an oral tradition that when we read the Tanakh and you look at the generations that existed from Noah to Abraham, it says that each generation caused the Spirit of the Most High to retreat and to distance itself from the earth because of the defilement, because of the abuse of power and unholiness and unrighteousness and wickedness that had just proliferated on earth, right? Even after the flood, right? And so with this, each generation experienced a decrease of contact with the Spirit of Yah. And so when Abraham came back, well, not came back, when he came into existence, it was his righteousness and his teachings that he brought to others, because he was being fruitful and multiplying, not physically, but spiritually, and creating taught ones and disciples and showing the world that Yah lives. And this is what caused the presence of Yah to come back on earth. And then you see how with Moses, that also allowed for what they call theophanies to take place, where Yah's presence is unmistakably recognized now. Mount Sinai, right? The different miracles that took place also on the land of Egypt. And so where you have this taking place, now you can see that the presence of Yah does truly dwell within men and with man. And we'll get to that shortly. So in 1 Peter chapter 2, we're going to look at the first few verses of this. The first 5 verses. It says, having put aside then, right, being that we are esteeming and honoring the Creator in our spirit and in our body, having put aside then all evil and all deceit and hypocrisies and envyings and all evil words, as newborn babes desire the unadulterated milk of the word, in order that you grow by it, if indeed you have tasted that the master is good, drawing near to him, a living stone, right? That word in Hebrew is eben, a living stone and living eben, right? Rejected indeed by men. This is because their spiritual consciousness is not able to receive that, but chosen by Elohim and precious. You also, as living stones, are being built up, a spiritual house, a set apart priesthood. We'll get to that our next broadcast. But you're being built up, a spiritual house, a set apart priesthood, to offer up spiritual slaughter offerings acceptable to Elohim through Messiah Yahushua. And this is what we have to understand. We are a house. And this is what the house of Israel is called that for, because as the house of Israel, right, including those who are brought in and grafted into this house, this nation, this kingdom, our purpose is to manifest the presence of Yah on earth through our actions, through our words, and through our thoughts. Everything should just like emanate the presence and the spirit of the Most High, in spirit and truth. And so when we do this, this is where the Shekinah, or the Shekinah, some call it, the Shekinah, it becomes manifest. But we are truly to be this house that allows for Yah's presence to be felt, to be experienced, to even be seen and witnessed, as we are the Most High's witnesses, made in the image and likeness. And the image and likeness is not a literal thing like we look like Yah physically. No, we look like Yah based on our intellectual perceptions and our conduct, our nature and our essence. So we will look like Yah in principle. Okay, and that is where we really get to see how everything functions. But we're the living house. We're the spiritual house and the living stones, right? You can go back into Daniel and see how this mountain carved out, or the stone carved out of a mountain without hands, is going to be established on earth. And this is talking about the 5th kingdom. And we've talked about these 4 kingdoms preceding us: Babylon, Persia, Greece, and Rome, right? But this 5th kingdom is going to be the Most High's kingdom of Israel reestablished on earth through the people. And so this is what our imperative is today. And all we need to do really, in essence, is keep these commandments and walk in truth and uphold justice and master ourselves first and foremost, so we can then punish our disobedience. And the only power we will need with that is the truth and the word and the light that is in us. Right? Because the weapons of our warfare are not necessarily carnal. We don't need, believe it or not, we don't need physical weapons to overcome our enemy. Because there's no way that we could literally go toe for toe physically with this beast who has designed these weapons of mass destruction, because we have the spirit of prophecy. We are able to be one with creation, with nature, and can use our words to bring forth realities that they have no clue about. And so this is what we truly should tap into, right? The spiritual plane that is behind everything. And so when we go back to Revelation 21, right, and we can see the end result of our obedience to this covenant, because this is all about a covenant relationship. Let's really make this clear. The covenant is intended for us to understand as a house what we are. We are pretty much like a bride in gender principle, right? This is why we're called the bride of Zion, because we are the house, the receptacle of the Spirit. And so when you understand the role of the woman is that she is the incubator of life, right? This is what we are to do with the Spirit of the Most High. We're incubating the life and the power and the force and the intellectual energy of the Most High. And this is what allows for Yah's presence to be made manifest. This is why, again, we're considered the house of Israel and the bride of Zion. Those are pretty much synonymous, because interestingly, the word bait is very akin to the Hebrew word, which is house. That word bait in Hebrew means house, which is very akin to the Hebrew word for daughter, which is bayit or bat. So it's very, very cognitively close. When I mean cognitively, like it's a cognate. It's a derivative. There are derivatives in these languages that connect to each other. And so as a living stone, I mentioned that word also in Hebrew is eben. The word for son is ben. And ben is the foundation of the house. That's the cornerstone of the house. This is what allows for us to understand that as sons and daughters of the Most High, we have very distinct roles, but all these roles come together to make this house one. And we're going to get to that as well. But looking at Revelation 21, the completed process of what this looks like, of what it is intended to be when we come together, is what the Feast of Tabernacles is all about. The Feast of Tabernacles, which is called Sukkot, Chag Sukkot in Hebrew, is about a prophetic reality manifested that allows for us to understand and to manifest that we are the tabernacle and the temple of the Most High. Yah never meant to dwell in a building. This is why when David was talking about that, about building a temple for the Most High, Yah was like, I never asked to dwell in a temple. He didn't even want to dwell in the Ark of the Covenant. In fact, in Jeremiah 3, we read of a time when it says that there won't even be a mentioning of the Ark of the Covenant anymore, because Yah doesn't desire to dwell in inanimate objects. He desires to dwell in us. And we have to prepare ourselves and cleanse ourselves to receive that, just as the bride prepares herself to receive her husband and to receive that seed that the husband inseminates her with to give forth life, to proliferate life. That's what has to take place. And this is what we have to do to allow the Spirit of Yah to be manifested on earth. These are the mysteries that we have to be taught and deal with that unfortunately are really not being brought to the surface. You know, and this is why it's so important to understand the imperative of eating right, of dressing right, of dealing with our bodies in a way that's going to allow us to be optimal in our health. Because healthiness, believe it or not, is equivalent to holiness. You cannot be holy and unhealthy. That is an impossibility. If you are unhealthy, you can't say I'm blessed and highly favored because you're sick. That is not, dis-ease is not what the Most High has given to his people. That's not the blessing of the Most High. Even healing is really not a blessing of the Most High. Now, it is favor that he gives you as a result of you finding yourself somewhere misaligned with the will of Yah. But the healing is only as a result of you truly repenting and coming back into wholeness and one with the Most High. Because Yah's will for us is to not get sick. We're not supposed to have diseases. We're not supposed to experience that stuff. The way that we are designed, we're designed to have eternity in us. And that's where the Spirit of the Most High is truly like found in that eternity that is in us. That's where the kingdom is found, right? The kingdom of heaven is within, because all these things are internal realities, but we're very quick to allow things occupy us that really have no business occupying us. Right. And so these are matters that we have to wrestle with. You know, I wrestle with these things daily myself, even to this day, you know, making sure that my thoughts are in alignment, making sure that the words that I speak are proper and pure, making sure my actions are lined up in a very righteous and holy way. And it's not easy, especially in the world which we live. And we got to make sure that we're just in alignment. But Revelation 21, it tells us this, let's go with the first 3 verses. It says, and I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. This is now getting to the pure essence of this. This is about your mind and your body. Individually, we have to renew our mind, transform our mind by the renewal of our mind, right? Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. So when you're seeing the renewed heaven, that's your mind. When you see the renewed earth, that's your body, okay? This is how we have to rightfully divide this and see this as a collective. And then once the collective nation has a renewed mind, a renewed body, guess what's going to happen to earth and heaven, right? It's going to be renewed, because we're going to be about the repair of this age. And that's what this is all about, repairing the age, tikkun olam, but that takes place through tikkun berit, repairing the covenant that we have with the Most High. And that starts with repairing yourself. We have to undergo repair, right? And this is what the whole issue of reparations is truly about. It's not about financial, no, I'm not saying that's not important, but it's not all about financial recompensation for the labor that we've done. That's a part of it, yes. But the true repair comes from the mental, emotional, and spiritual repair that we have to undergo first. Because if they give us hundreds of thousands and millions of billions of trillions of dollars that we're owed and our minds aren't right, that's ruination. That is more destruction, because all we're going to do is get that money right back to our oppressor and purchase things that we don't need. We're not going to think about building industries. We're not going to think about repairing our communities, right? We're not going to think about investing in businesses collectively. We're going to take this individually and run. We're going to get all the new Escalades. We're going to get all the new, clotheslines that's out. We're going to get all these liabilities and not think about nation building. Because our minds haven't been repaired. Our spirits are still broken. You give a slave money, a slave don't know what to do with that money, so he's going to give it right back to his master. Right? So this is why we got to repair the mind, repair the spirit and the mind first. And then get our bodies united in the line. So again, I saw a renewed heaven and a renewed earth. For the former heaven and the former earth had passed away, and the sea is no more. These other peoples, which is what the waters represent of the sea, Revelation 17, you can read that, of the waters that the great whore of Babylon sits on, are the peoples and tribes and tongues and nations. But these peoples of the darkness shall be no more. And I, Yohanan, or John, the Revelator, saw the set-apart city, renewed Jerusalem. Now keep in mind, a city, just like a house, is made by the people who inhabit it. So the people are renewed. Jerusalem is the people first and foremost. The land is, again, the result of the people inhabiting it and doing the work necessary to bring that manifestation forth. And I, Yohanan, saw the set-apart city, renewed Jerusalem, coming down out of the heaven from Elohim. And again, not literally. Just like when John saw the dove descending on Yahushua, it wasn't a literal dove. It was a vision. It was a spirit of consciousness descending on him. This is the spirit of the renewed Jerusalem descending in principle, in intellectual energy, in spirit. Prepared, here it goes, as a bride adorned for her husband. That's the preparation that we have to undergo. When you think about, when a woman has been betrothed to someone, engaged to a man, and the preparation that goes into making this wedding, not only the wedding, but also the marriage successful, it's about being very selective and discreet, right? It's about focusing your attention on the outcome of what the intent of that proposal is all about, which is to create a family, which is to leave a legacy for the children that come forth. And this is all the scriptures talk about. This is the ethical will. This is a lawful covenant that is entered into between heaven and earth, between Yah and Israel, and those who choose to sojourn with Israel, right? In recreating this earth and creating a family, right, of holy children on earth. Because remember, in John 1, it says, as many as received the Messiah, Yahushua, to them he gave authority to become children of Elohim. This is a family. This is an adoption, right? This is an espousal. This is about marriage. This is what the whole correlation of a man leaving his mother and father and cleaving to his wife is all about. It's about leaving the world and returning to the kingdom and marrying our true bridegroom, which is the Messiah. And that's how we create this house, right? But what the scriptures have done is just given us allegories. It's given us metaphors to understand how this all functions. And we have to understand it in principle. Verse 3, and I heard a loud voice from the heavens saying, see, the booth, the tabernacle, the sukkah, right, of Elohim is with men. And that is a very significant verse because this lets us know that man is the booth of Elohim. He is the true booth. The booth of Elohim is with men, right? And he shall dwell with them. You can even say in them. He shall dwell in them and with them, and they shall be his people, and Elohim himself shall be with them and be their Elohim. And so the power of understanding this sukkah, of understanding this tabernacle, of understanding this booth, of understanding this temple, you can see it in two places in scripture. You can see it in the book of Exodus, where Moses goes about designing the tabernacle exactly according to the vision and the pattern that he was shown on the mountain. And also you can see it with King Solomon when he goes about erecting the temple. When all these things take place, you can see the intricacy of what goes into forming this structure. Just like you can understand the intricacy of what takes place when we are born. And more importantly, when we unite as a people, the intricacy and the details of uniting, what it takes. And the basis of all of our unity is in one word: ideology. We have to have the right ideas. And this is why the Torah, this is why the law, this is why the commandments are so important, because what it does, it takes everybody's opinion out of it. Shut your mouth. I don't care what you believe. It don't matter. Let's deal with this principle. Let's deal with this law, right? And that's where the alignment comes from. This is where the unity comes from. This is where this oneness and even the preparation. Now we can agree on this principle, right? And just looking at the basic 10 commandments, the basics that we have, which is pretty much like the Bill of Rights, not the entire Constitution, just the Bill of Rights that lets us know, look, Yah's our Elohim, should have no Elohim before Yah, right? Don't make any graven images, right? Don't worship any graven images. Don't bring Yah's name to naught, or don't make it in vain. Don't take it in vain, which means not just to say, oh, GD. It don't mean that. It means don't misrepresent that name. Don't blaspheme the name of the Most High. If you are who you are, be who you are. Don't be a hypocrite. That's why it says in 1 Peter, right? Putting aside all hypocrisies. The way that we blaspheme Yah's name and bring his name to naught is by being a hypocrite. Oh, I love the Lord, but you out here living like a damn heathen? That's not loving the Most High. That's a hypocrisy. And that's bringing his name to naught and using his name in vain. Even though his name is not the Lord, but that's a different story. Right? So when we do these things, we honor the Sabbath, because why? That is the imprint of creation. That is his imprint on creation. Yah created the world in 6 days and rested on the seventh. That is the sign. That is the symbol and the seal of Yah, that you are saying that the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob of the scriptures is your Elohim. That's the unmistakable sign. That's the mark of Yah, if you will, not the mark of the beast, which is another day that people worship on, that we talked about as well. Yah's mark is his, what in Hebrew is called Shabbatot, the 72 Sabbath days, days of rest out of the year. Those let you know that you serve the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Unmistakably. Unmistakably. That's the fourth commandment. Honor your mother, your father, right? Because that is representative of your relationship with your heavenly father as well, and your heavenly mother, which is the Torah. Right? So don't murder. Don't steal. Don't bear false witness. Don't covet that which belongs to your neighbor, right? And there's one more, of course, the 10th commandment as well. But those 10 are the bases, and they all coming down into two basic commandments. Love Yah with all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And this is how we start to build this temple. This is the basic instructions that we have to build this temple. Because now we're treating ourselves right. We're loving ourselves. Love your neighbor as you love yourself. Take care of yourself. That's one of the hardest things that we can do, because we may say we love ourselves, but we abuse ourselves so much. We abuse ourselves so much. We don't take care of ourselves, you know. And we got to do that. We got to heal. You have to undergo healing. Like, I could have let these cysts just stay in my head and let them get big as I don't know what. But I'm like, you know what? These don't belong. These things don't belong in my head. So I got to go through the necessary preparations to get them removed. Right? Because I love myself. I didn't want to see myself looking like, what's his name from the Goonies? Chunk from the Goonies. I don't want to see myself looking like that. Right? So I'd rather look like this today than have some big lumps on my head tomorrow. You know what I'm saying? So I'm looking kind of silly today. I almost got a turban on, but when I found out they was going to wrap it under my chin as opposed to around my head, I was like, oh, man. I'll deal with it, though. I went back to work and everything. Oh, man, that's funny to me. But we got to take care of ourselves, people. That's the basis of it, right? Hygiene, brush your teeth, you know, put on your ointments, your oils, you know, anoint your body, you know what I'm saying? Eat right, get some exercise, get your rest, get some water. Speaking of which, you're listening to KUAW Radio. I'm your host, B. Michael. This is Shifting Paradigms. This little station identification, this is brought to you by the Black Family Technology Awareness Association. I'm just going to get a real quick swig of water, you know what I'm saying? Because I need my water right now the way I'm running my mouth. That's a good little break there. I needed that. Okay, it's live on the book. Oh, yeah. And we're back here, Shifting Paradigms. I'm your host, B. Michael. We're talking about tabernacle paradigmatics this evening and dealing with the reality that our bodies, individually and collectively, are designed to be the house of the Spirit of the Most High. And there's mysteries involved in this. You know, we read briefly 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 19 and 20 that discuss that our bodies are, in fact, the house of the Most High. We read from 1 Peter 2, verses 1 through 3 that discussed how we're the living stones that compose this. Each stone has to go in and fit to unite, right? We read from Revelation 21, that discussed that the booth of Elohim is with men, and we have to prepare ourselves as a bride prepares herself to be adorned by her husband. Right? So we got to go through the process of preparation and returning to this covenant and understanding what goes into being the house of Elohim that we can read of in Exodus, really going from chapter 35 all the way to the 40th chapter. You can also read it with King Solomon and his design of the temple, in which he brought forth, the first stable place of worship with the Most High. But again, the Most High never desired to inhabit inanimate objects. He only desired to live within the bodies of his people, right? But Israel, throughout history, has rejected that particular role. They rejected prophecy, and these are things that we have to reckon with and correct and rectify so that we can make a new heaven and a new earth, first and foremost with our new heaven, our mind, and a new earth with our body, become a reality so that we can transform the whole landscape of the world. Because the world is hurting. I was talking with my mother on the way here about how damaged the world is and how many people are just hateful and just in darkness. People are now calling themselves demons. They're calling themselves demons now, as if that is something to be proud of, right? And so it's a dangerous time, but these are the times in the days of Noah. Scripture tells us as it was in the days of Noah, so also shall it be in the day of the Son of Man. I want to thank all those who are tuning in to Shifting Paradigms this evening. Your comments and your energy are appreciated. I think that was my mama. More than likely it was my mama, so shout out to my mama, Rita Faye. Yeah, so, we're definitely in the throes of a very dark time where we have to be more bold in righteousness and be more bold in holiness and set apartness and be light, because the world is dark. And if we want to see change, we have to be that change. We have to go about being that light to bring forth, the true kingdom of heaven on earth. And so just real quick, looking at Exodus 39, right? The last few verses of this particular chapter, Moses, in verse 42 and 43, it says, according to all that Yah had commanded Moses, so the children of Israel did all the work. And Moses looked over all the work and saw they did it as Yah had commanded, so they had done. And Moses blessed them, right? So when you go back into creation, you see what Yah did with each of these particular days. Yah ended his work with the seventh day, and that's the day that Yah blessed. That's the day that Yah sanctified. But what Yah had done was given Moses the same responsibility to be the creator of the kingdom on earth as it is in heaven, to go about erecting this tabernacle, which is only, again, symbolic of the people putting forth the effort to make this a reality. This is the true work that we have to go about, not about the edifice itself. It's not about the edifice. It's about the people coming together and uniting to do the work. That's what the true focus is. Because the tabernacle is just the meeting place. That's just where we come together and get this synergy centralized, and we get our marching orders to go back into the world and carry out the true business and work of our Father and our King. That's what we have to do. We just go into the huddle, and when we go into the tabernacle, get the information, break, go out and do the business, right? So Moses blessed them because Moses had prophetically ascended to a height where he was able to see Yah, it tells us, face to face. He was inspired by the Spirit to get the prophetic word to give to the people so that the people could go about fulfilling the will of Yah. That's what a prophet does. A prophet tells you what Yah's will is. They don't tell you your job is about to give you a raise. They don't tell you you about to get a new car. They don't tell you you about to come into the best years of your life. They tell you this is what Yah wants you to do. That's what a prophet does. They reveal to you the will of the Most High. If someone is predicting to you what's about to happen, you're better off just going and get your palms read, right? Because they don't know, really. They don't know. They think that they know, but they don't know because they don't have the will of creation within them. They're going by what they intuit. They don't go by what is revealed to them. Revelation is so much deeper than intuition, but now I'm not going to chase that rabbit. So I want to read something real quick from this book. It's called God, Man, the Word Made Flesh. This is by a book by George Carey and Inez Perry. I want to say it was written in like the early 1900s. So let's see. Let me go back up to this. This book talks about us as the temple. Okay. So it says it is quite reasonable to think that some oxygen and hydrogen has eternally existed in gaseous form, some in the combination that causes water, and some in the concrete or concentrated form known as ice. Then upon the postulate that spirit and matter, that is, bodily or material expression, are one, it follows logically that matter, including the physical body or temple of man, is as necessary to the father-mother principle while held in a given rate of activity or expression as this life essence is necessary to matter or the physical structure of man. So there are elements that go into making water and ice possible. Just like there are elements that go into making the body, the physical body of man, the temple of the Most High, right? So this mother-father principle to be made manifest, to be expressed on earth, it requires the physical structure of man to be in proper operation, okay? He goes on to say, I see oxygen and hydrogen when I look at the manifestation we call ice. When I see water, I know just how oxygen and hydrogen appear when united. So when I look at any form of so-called matter, I know exactly how the Most High appears at that particular time and place. I do not see the effect or works of Elohim, but I see Elohim and just as much of Elohim face to face as I am capable of seeing or recognizing at a certain time. Step by step, the scientific investigator is led to the threshold of the awful absolute truth that all matter or substance or energy or force, or call it what you may, is not only intelligent, but is pure intelligence itself. So the idea comes from something in Hebrew called Simsum. Simsum is where the idea of what the Big Bang comes from. This is where light was constricted so much that it had nowhere else to go but to violently expand. Right? This is what happened to Yah. This is where the darkness was in the beginning, right? But then Elohim said, let there be light, because this constriction of darkness, of light, being encompassed by darkness, had no other place for light to go but to violently expand, which caused an eruption, or a Big Bang as they called it. But what happened was, when this explosion took place, all these light particles, all these intelligent energy forces, like, expanded throughout the universe. And these light particles are the elements that created everything, even you and I. But what has happened to us is that we have become encrusted, if you will, in flesh because of our carnality, because of sin. The more sins that we commit, the more callous we become to that light that is within us. This is why we got to peel away all this flesh. This is why we have to be reborn, if you will, right? We have to circumcise the foreskin of our heart, which is our minds, and be transformed by its renewing and studying the commandments, right? So these things are very important for us to understand. These elements are within us, and this is why we are the house of the Most High. This is how we tap into that. It says ice is not permeated with water or controlled by water. Ice is water, right? Matter is not controlled by mind. Mind and matter are one. A high vibration of mind does control to a certain extent a lower vibration of mind, as water may carry a lump of ice here or there, water being a more positive rate of activity of the same thing. The particles so-called of matter know what to do. The atoms that compose a leaf know when to cohere and materialize a leaf, and they know how and when to disintegrate and dematerialize it. You shall have no other Elohim, right? So these are things that we have to understand and know how Yah is really permeating everything, right? Especially when we acknowledge it. The book of Acts talks about in the Areopagus, where all the sophists were in this place reasoning and talking about who has the freshest and newest teachings and philosophies. Paul saw an unknown God and says, this is the creator of all, from which we all come from one blood, and it is in him which we live, move, and have our being. We live, move, breathe, and have our being, right? We are all descended from this energy, this mind, which is what we truly need to tap into, this consciousness. That is what connects us to this Elohim and what allows for this physical structure to become the body and the temple of the Most High. So let's see what else this book says. This is a very interesting book. It says this here. This is a very good package. It says, we can turn the pages of Gray's Anatomy or any good medical dictionary and examine carefully the illustration of a 26-day-old fetus. We see then that almost the entire body consists of brain substance. In fact, it looks like an elongated brain. My theory is that is the head of the sperm that is just looking to be fertilized in an egg. And the tail of that sperm is your spinal cord. The upper brain or father-mother substance is what furnishes the material from which the body is made. Verily, it is the Alpha, the beginning. Degenerates and people living in excess have become greatly deficient in this precious material, and the whole appearance of the body testifies to the desecration of the temple. The body is the temple. And so when we look at the temple and we look at its contents, right? If we look at the temple, we would see that the priest's cells are a turban, right? When you can see the structure of the temple at the back part of what is the west side of the temple, you have gold and silver bullion, but that is where the head of the high priest is covered on this metallic man. The temple is really Jacob lying down prostrate when he's on Mount Moriah and wakes to, he's on that stone and he wakes to the vision of the ladder. So it's really about Jacob seeing who Yah is, okay? That's what the temple is designed after. That's the pattern of the temple. The priest cells on the south and north sides are the arms of this metallic Messiah, which is who we are when we're united as a temple. When we're united as a temple, we are the messianic presence of Yah on earth. The two large stars on the veil are the eyes of the temple man, okay? They are the eyes. The Ark of the Covenant, of course, is the brain. That's our mind, the Holy of Holies, right? The stairway that leads from the holy place to the Holy of Holies is our neck. The incense altar, that's our nose, right? That is the nose. Some say it's the nose, others say it's the heart, but it is where we perceive Yah through scent. The tables of showbread, I would say that is the heart. That is our heart right there. Okay, the lampstand, of course, that is the spinal cord, and that is the ribs, the menorah, right? The porch represents the human pelvis, and the procreation of us. The 10 lavers represent the 10 fingers of the hands. The pillars of Joachim and Boaz, of course, are the legs. The sea of bronze with the 12 bulls, it depicts the 12 tribes of Israel, and the sacrificial altar are the feet. So when we see all these things here put together, when you see this temple put together, it is showing you how the body is intended to function. Right? So these are some of the mysteries that we have to unravel when dealing with the scripture to see how all of this applies, because it was only pointing to a higher principle. It points to the Messiah, but here's the thing: the Messiah, Yahushua, in fulfillment of Daniel 7 and the 70-week prophecy of when he would appear, was only sent to Israel to get Israel back on path to be that messianic reality, that messianic presence, that messianic kingdom on earth. So he was the Messiah to get Israel back in step, so that Israel, as the Messiah, would get the world back in step with Yah and reconcile to favor the world with Yah. That's the purpose. And this is how we function as a temple. When we're the temple, we go about making atonement for humanity. We are helping humanity become aligned with Yah in spirit and truth. And we're going to get into that a little more with the next shifting paradigms, as we're going to deal with the priesthood paradigmatic, because once this temple is erected and understood, now you can start to go about the administration and functionings of this temple and bringing forth the work of atonement and teaching the world what is clean from unclean, what is holy from profane, and the laws of the Torah, so that we can live our lives properly. This is what this is all about. But I'm B. Michael here. We're dealing with temple and tabernacle paradigmatics. Check us back out in another 2 weeks. So what's today? Today is the 17th. So we will be back here on the 31st. Ooh, I may have a definite special broadcast for that. If we're open, are we gonna be open on the 31st, Baba? Gee, it's Halloween, but you know, we'll see, huh?
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see how that goes. We'll see how that goes. 'Cause I may have some fire, just a special broadcast for that one, boy. I'm telling you. Woo-wee, don't get me started. But anyway, we'll be back in a couple weeks though. But I want to thank my listeners for tuning in. Everybody who did, peace and power to you. Much love as always. This is B. Michael with Shifting Paradigm signing off. Until next time, much love to everybody. I'm out.